Oh yeah, it's a package from China time, and I think this is going to be a really interesting one. So let's go. We have seen a lot of releases of different handhelds that are actually Windows based, but this is going to be a slightly different story. But this device really piqued my interest, with the reason of the format they're using, but also when it comes to other features. They're using the idea of the switch. Yep, they're having two separate controllers that you can attach to your device. This is something we did have seen with different brands, but now we do have like a budget, or at least like a cheaper solution. But when it comes to the specification, everything is also going to be different, because it's more like targeting a low budget solution. So in here we're having a power supply, like a 36 watts, or in other words 12 volt 3 amps, and yeah, they are using a tiny barrel jack connection, and it's quite lightweighted when it comes to that. In here we're finding the two separate joysticks. I find it kind of cool that they're having a very nice case around it. So the presentation is quite nice, but also we're going to be doing a chit chat about these things, because I've been testing and playing with them, and do have a little bit of a mixed feeling when it comes to that. And presentation wise, I'm guessing when you're ordering this thing brand new, or at least new in like a completely like second batch, you're going to be having a different configuration. Everything is going to be packed up way better. And so here we're having the device itself, and it is a very heavy device, but the idea is similar to the Switch, where you can just click these things on. And we do have even a kickstand at the back, but the thing, I must say, feels quite nice and durable, with a metal case and a lot of connection and possibilities. The Piccolo G Series 1, this is actually what this product is called. But let's do a quick overview of the specification, and let's chit chat about it first. Like they're saying, the top features. Yeah, Intel N95 top feature. Okay. So the thing is, we're having DDR4 memory, the M2 storage. We can upgrade it to 2 TB, and it does support 4K video output through the HDMI. And they were not lying about the 10.5-inch IPS panel, because that one looked really great, and the detachable gamepads are kind of cool. But there is a little thing I found annoying that I found with these, but later on we're going to show you what I mean. The Intel N95 will give us 4 cores and 4 threads running on 3.4 GHz maximum, built-in GPU from Intel. The DDR4 is going to be 4800 Hz. We can upgrade to 32 GB, but the unfortunate part is it's only single channel. What I mentioned, we can upgrade the storage, and beside that we do have dual band Wi-Fi and Bluetooth 4.2. And the battery, like the specification sheet says, 5000 mAh, but we're going to be checking out, we're doing the full teardown. So they went for the N95 chipsets from Intel. It's kind of interesting they didn't went for the N100. Maybe it's going to be something they're doing because of the production costs, that the N95 is going to be cheaper. But how about the joysticks? There's a couple of things I wanted to point out. How comfortable are they? So they are so much more comfortable than the original Switch ones, and it has simply to do with the form factor. But a couple of things that I found a little bit of a downside when it comes to that. So first of all, when you're going to be looking into the joysticks, and maybe that's me being a little bit too nitpicky, but I find the resistance of the joystick not really pleasant. A little bit more resistance would be very nice to have like an overall better gameplay experience. So they went for the clicky D-pad, and one of the things I did notice, we're actually going to be playing some, let's say, beat 'em ups, and you need to use every single direction. It's quite sensitive, and this is not going to be the best D-pad ever. For fighting games, it's just going to be okay. Going to the other controller, so one of the other things, what I love about it, we're having these very big buttons, and yeah, if you're going to be playing, holding it, and you're going to be touching it, it's going to be very comfortable when it comes to like this size. Also the round shape make it very comfortable. However, the downside is that the resistance of the button is way too much. Having okay travel is not like bad at all, but the resistance make it really difficult, in my opinion, to play. So if you're going to be playing fighting games, yeah, you do find yourself like pushing and trying a little bit harder than normal. And at the back we do have ourselves the M2 and the M1 buttons, and of course we're having the analog triggers and everything that we're going to be needing. But how about connecting? This is another configuration, and let's say a difference when you're going to be checking the Switch, because the Switch you can just slide it in, and this is also a similar situation, but it's going to be slightly different. You do have a kind of a click mechanism when it comes to the side of the device, but when you're going to be clicking it in, with my particular version, I'm hoping in the second batch it's going to be better, because mine wasn't perfect when it comes to that. So let me showcase. So when you're going to be sliding it in, or at least like clicking it in, it's not actually sliding, it's always a little bit of a tricky situation. You need to get used to it. So if you're going to be clicking it in, you can hear the click. Actually, I'm hoping the camera picks it up, or the microphone. And yeah, the overall quality, I must say it's quite nice when it comes to that. However, if you want to click it out, you can just do it fairly easy. So if you're going to be clicking both of them in and you're going to be playing, it's not going to be like a massive problem. It's not like you're going to be having the problem that automatically slides out. But yeah, when you're going to be messing around with it, you will notice is that you can just slide it out fairly easy. And that's kind of interesting and weird at the same time, because we do have normally like special buttons at the back that you need to push in, but you don't need to push it in because you can just click them out like that. So one of the things I am really satisfied with is with the Piccolo G Series 1 the kickstand. This thing is very nice. When you're looking at the switch, it also had like issues. I think one of the switches from my nephew is actually like broken off. I'm not really afraid with this, with a simple reason, because the way how this feels, made out of metal, got some serious, let's say, quality here. And you can just put it in a different position and it just stays there. And one of the reasons you really want to use this sometimes with the reason because this thing is quite heavy and it's a 10.1 inch screen, so it's absolutely massive. And yeah, this is just one of those very cool features that I do love about this device itself. But let's do a quick overview of all the connectors, because here we do have some interesting features too. So at the right side of the device, we're going to be having a physical volume control. We do have a normal USB connection, and that's going to be very interesting if you just want to add a second control for playing this, because you can hook it up to a monitor with the mini HDMI, the input for the barrel jack for charging the device, and separate one, then an USB-C, and we can use an OTG port so we can connect even more devices. And then of course we're having at the right over there, we're having a micro SD card input and an audio jack. And at the bottom we're finding two stereo speakers, and I can tell you I'm always like a big fan of good audio, and this one also did not really disappoint when it comes to that. Okay, so let's power it up. So you're just going to be holding the button for a couple of seconds and it will automatically boot up into the Windows operating system. You can see over here Piccolo G Series 1 with the logo, and very quickly after, let's say in a very short time period, it will boot up into Windows 11. So I understand they're using Windows 11 Pro at this model, and that's it. So in this first part I wanted to focus on the touchscreen, because I think that is a feature that we do some really cool stuff with. So let's deep dive into some old school games and just have some fun with that. So let's start off with some old school games, and that's what I love about these, let's say, budget friendly but very awesome games you can still play now. So this is a game that still works on Windows 11. It's of course one of those things that you need to take consideration with older games, but the touchscreen is absolutely a great add-on. And this is what I'm going to be playing a lot. Let's clear the stage for once. Let's go! And what I love about it, because this is just a cool game to play with mouse, but when you're going to be having touchscreen, you do have like a massive advantage when it comes to that. Give me the fricking... But the touchscreen is very sensitive, or at least in a positive way, because if you just want to play some old school Fruit Ninja HD, we can just actually play that without any problem whatsoever. You can just hear that the fan starts spinning like crazy. That is interesting because its GPU is using like 42 and we're having 38 like Celsius on the CPU, so there's nothing, let's say, very interesting going on. But also this is one of those other cool things you can do with this tiny retro gaming machine. Because come on, let's be honest, this is absolutely retro when it comes to that. And if you think it can get more retro than this, oh absolutely it can, with some Bejeweled. I do realize that I am using the first edition. You do have like this fancy one. A couple of them have been released. And also this particular game seems to be still working on Windows 11. It's like a freaking miracle, if you ask me. What is kind of weird, so when you're looking at, let's say, the resolution is slightly off. But it doesn't spoil the fun when it comes to that. Of course, if you want to play some old school tower defense game, that is also possible. And I think this is a very awesome tablet to play it on, with a simple reason because I really love the screen that's inside of this machine. It looks amazing when it comes to that. And of course, it's very accurate. And of course, we're going to be playing more, let's say, demanding games. But take consideration with the N95, we don't really have a lot of stuff we can actually play because of the onboard GPU. And still, it's a low budget chip. But beside that point, where I'm going to be mainly using it for is just games like this. But how about, let's say, some more demanding or at least like indie games? Because that is another series I love to play on these low budget chips. But let's move into the controllers, because that is going to be the next thing we're going to be using. Yep, you can also use them wirelessly if you want to. But for now, I'm just going to be plugging it in and just going to be playing like this. But of course, let's remove the screen protector. And going to make it even more glossy, as you can see already. However, doesn't spoil the fun. At this moment, I'm using the kickstand. And yeah, this is one of the things that I just find it very pleasant to play if you don't want to hold in your hand, because this thing is quite heavy. And the vibration of these controls are just crazy when it comes to that. But this is running on 60 FPS. We still have a little on GPU power left. It's running on, let's say, 70-ish%. You just want to play a basic game with the D-pad. Where I already mentioned the beat 'em ups were not like a super pleasant experience. Oh, that vibration is nuts. But here you can see that I wanted to move forward and I'm going to be gently like pressing it a little bit up, or normally this is not going to be an issue. You can see that I'm already using the up button over here. So it's quite sensitive to this area over there. So when it comes to playing some basic games, this is going to be absolutely a very fun tablet. However, let's move to something else. Another game I just love to play. This tablet is perfect for if you just love to play these basic games like I do. Street of Rage Remake, in my opinion, the best Street of Rage game that it has ever made. And of course, I love the original ones, but this one, when I discovered this particular game, I never want to go back to the Sega versions, the original ones. So it's not like a point that it's going to be unplayable with the D-pad when it comes to the direction, but sometimes it's just moving upwards and that's not going to be an overall great idea or pleasant experience. So coming back to the joystick itself, so why this thing is very loose, but I personally don't really like while playing the games. It's not to the point too that is going to be making this unplayable. So audio-wise, but also when it comes to playing the game, it's absolutely a lot of fun. And the controllers are automatically recognized due because they are like X input. So with Pac-Man, this is another game that's going to be a little bit more demanding. And you can see that the game is actually running on 33 frames, not on full speed. But just a simple game like this, you would expect it's going to be not a problem at all. But unfortunate, you see already that the N95 does have some limits when it comes to that. So let's take a close look at one of my games I love to check out, is the Red Roger game. And the reason why is because this is a CPU, GPU, or particularly like GPU power hungry game. And with the N95, this is not going to be handling the game like you just want to play it, because this is absolutely horrible. Where like Huntdown was absolutely great to play, but this is one of those many games that you need to take consideration that will not run great. Or you need to live with like 20 frames with a lot of crazy dips. So let's move to something else. One of those very cool games is the Tony Hawk 1 and 2 collection, which still looks okay. You can just see that we do have games that can be playable. I really love the rumble function of the controller. But when you're looking at it, it goes all freaking places with like sometimes hitting 50 frames per second. We do have like dips to 30 frames per second, but I think this game, it's still enjoyable and in other words playable. Oh, the rumble function is crazy on this thing. Oh, particularly the left one. So that's absolutely awesome to see that we can actually play some games, three-dimensional games, but with the N95 we do have a lot of limitation and the full 60 frames is not going to be happening. This game also has been tweaked to the lowest settings to the point that it still looks okay, because you have a couple of settings that you can lower that makes this game really ugly. Think about PlayStation 1 quality. Yeah, that makes no sense of playing it like that. But let's move into the emulation part, because this is where the N95 also shines very well. Where we cannot play PlayStation 3 emulation and stuff like that, we can still do a lot of cool things. Another feature I already mentioned in this video is that the USB at the top. Because if you're having a USB stick like this, you can just pick them up for really like cheap or not a lot of money and just stick it in. Yeah. And this way we can just play all kinds of cool retro stuff. So at this point we've been playing all kinds of different games, and I don't know how it's for you, but I know what you can expect with this N95. We can play a lot of cool indie games, homebrew games, even some older stuff. But how about emulation? So we're going to be testing out all kinds of different systems, but there is this USB port at the top, what I find really convenient. And let me explain why. We're having these, let's say, plug and play USB, let's say, dongle solutions. This is a one on 28 gigabyte with all kinds of different. And what you can do is just plug this thing on top and install and play thousands of different retro games. And this is made possible by Retrobat and the Piapit stick. Yeah, this is absolutely awesome. One of the other cool features is that we can actually use the touchscreen just to scroll through the different systems. Yeah, there is actually so much that we can just play. The N95 is a low power chip, but we're going to be checking out a couple of the systems. No one to like doing a deep dive into it, because that would be fun maybe for another video, but just doing a couple of systems and check it out. So PlayStation 3 is not going to be a system that's going to be running on this. However, this is just going to be a very cool way to play some old school games, and I think that's going to be the perfect add-on to all the stuff they've already been playing through the controls and the touchscreen. So let's say you want to play some old school Game Boy games, we can go into the Game Boy list, and in here we can find our favorite games and just play them and boot them up fairly easy. The overall experience compared with Battlesphere is of course a Linux operating system, so that is more stable, or at least you don't have like this shenanigans of, let's say, the Windows doing something weird things on the back end. But if you just want to play some games, yeah, this is a very cool way. So next up, so we have different, let's say, operating, have also like a Lunchbox, stuff you can do with that, but that's not the case. We're just going to be using the Retrobat configuration today, because that is one of the many ways to actually play. But it's not going to be running perfect. I already noticed some glitches, but this has to do with the configuration of what kind of emulator. I just wanted to showcase it on native resolution 2, but let's just get into the game, see how stable it runs. We can do a lot of tweaking between different emulators to see how much better result we're getting. You can see some glitches over there. I just want to see what happens out of the box. But playing this on the go, that will be a fun thing to do. And pressing select to start will bring you back to the main menu itself. But with the N95, what I think is quite interesting, that we do have a lot of systems that we couldn't even play normally on the, say, the game boxes from China. And combining this with the stick, you can of course like load up the image to your internal storage. I think the internal storage was 500 gigabyte, so we have more than enough. Then it looks like it isn't configured out of the box, so that doesn't matter. But the emulation performance seems to be running 30 frames. I must say, this particular game, where it's not like super bad, I don't know, man. Just give me Street of Rage. So the unfortunate part is out of the box. Yeah, this is not going to be running great. I'm guessing they're using the wrong emulator, but just wanted to see how far we can push it with this emulator, this settings. But Sega Saturn is not running well when it comes to that. Where I love Sega Saturn as a console, I really hate this freaking game. Let me know in the comments, what do you think of this Sonic R? Oh. But if you're getting into basic gaming, this is going to be no problem whatsoever. So if you just want to play some arcade games, yep, you can actually do that without any problem whatsoever. Yeah. But how about the fighting games? I already mentioned before that the D-pad is quite pleasant when it comes to that. I really love this very short clickish D-pad when it comes to that because of the certain moves. But another system I wanted to see is the PlayStation Portable. I do run a separate emulator, not through RetroArch itself. And yeah, just see how far we can push it. So let's first start off with some native resolution. This is not looking really great when it comes to the overall quality. That's why I love upscaling. But so far so good when it comes to that. We have the minor dip, but that is something that happens a lot. So another problem I'm noticing now, and this is like the button, when I mentioned before, you really need to press it quite hard. So if you need to hold it, it's quite annoying when it comes to that. But the overall emulation performance is quite good. So I'm quite surprised when it comes to this N95 processor. I will not really upscale it. I will not really recommend doing that. Maybe if like a two-dimensional basic game, you can do that. But beside that, I would just keep it as it is. Where I didn't want to do any upscaling whatsoever, with Sega Dreamcast and the Dream Emulator, I did like do one little step upscaling because it looks slightly better this way. But just wanted to check it out, how far we can push this N95. But you can just actually see that it runs on full speed. I've been trying it, putting on full HD. That was not going to be working great for this particular device. But Sega Dreamcast is possible to play with a little bit of an upscaling with the N95. And if they're going to be using like a powerful AMD Ryzen chip, you can even do a little upscaling to 4K rendering resolution in the end. But again, it also will come with a different price point. So it's absolutely cool and enjoyable this way. But can we run some PlayStation 2? Yes, we can. Have been tweaking, and of course, depending what kind of game you want to play, it is actually possible. But the unfortunate part is you can see that we do have some frame dips to the 40. If you have two-dimensional games, they're less demanding and they will run so much better when it comes to that. But just wanted to give you a quick look with the Twisted Metal Black, one of my favorite games to play. And also here with this game, the vibration goes nuts with these freaking controllers. So let's move to the GameCube. Also here I needed to do a little bit tweaking with the emulator. Still a little bit of screen tearing. But we're not running on full speed, the same situation like with PlayStation 2. We'll have some frame dips. But if you don't see the frames per second, I don't really find it bothering. Man, I'm almost surprised how loud this freaking thing goes. But emulation performance wise, again, is the same situation that depending what kind of game you're going to be playing. Yes, the tricky game seems to be working just fine, but again, I did a lot of tweaking in the emulator to get it running. Because with the N95, we do have stuff like this happening. So where the Switch has a docking, we're not going to be needing that. For the simple reason, we can just plug in an HDMI mini to HDMI. And plugging in the second controller, we can just use this thing like a game console. And how freaking cool is that? So let's say you're going to be playing some old school games like Tony Hawk. Yeah, you can actually do that with, let's say, using the Joy-Con ones. We can just play in split screen mode. We're going to be pushing the device to its limit. Of course, it's going to be looking way better on the smaller screen. But if you just want to play on a small screen together, you can just do it with the right games. Like this is the old school days where you can just play the games together on split screen mode. So yep, no problem whatsoever with the Xbox controller. We can just play both players. We do have like massive dips to 15-20 frames per second. But if you don't mind it, you can just enjoy some old school Tony Hawk and many other games like of course Down that we have played before. You can just also play that in 2-player cooperative mode. And if you just want to play with a normal controller, that is not going to be an issue whatsoever. Take notice if having like different controls, you need to sometimes configure it, which controller you want to put in play 1 or play 2. But besides that, we can just play it without any problem whatsoever. And plugging this thing into your television, I think it's absolutely great add-on. Particularly if you want to play a little bit of an emulation. That's what I call the super chop chop. Oh yeah. So the model number is called HL108G. So the rated capacity of the battery is 4500 milliamp. And we do have the 2 speakers over here. So I'm not going to be touching it because we can remove it, but we're not going to be removing screws if you want to replace the battery itself. On the top we're finding the fan itself over here. So I must say this thing is not like super loud, so I'm very satisfied with that, and it only spins when it's really going to be needing. Did notice with a couple of emulation and some high-end games. So the downside I find a little bit, I wish they weren't going to be upgrading this, is going to be having dual channel RAM in the future. So it's only place for 1 NVMe, and this is over here. They're using the King's, and it's personally a brand I don't know what it is, what kind of brand, if it's going to be any good. So at that point, let me know in the comments if you've ever heard of it, or used it. This is the P6, or is it? 600, yes. Okay, so next up, so that is actually when we're going to be having connectors over here. So you need to do a replacement, that is possible. So repairing with this particular product is possible when it comes to that. So that's it. If you need to do any maintenance, you can see there's not a lot of end parts in there. So like there's still a little bit of room, or that's how I'm actually going to be feeling. So everything is replaceable, and the way how you're going to be replacing, if you need to replace the RAM itself, it can be done. NVMe can be upgraded fairly easy. So the way how they put it together is quite nice. So let's put it back together, and let's put the screws in. This one doesn't fit perfectly, but beside that, not bad at all. So this device will be used for emulation, but of course we do have a lot of limitations when it comes to that, but also when it comes just to normal games, where some games are still enjoyable, some are just completely unplayable. And that's what we're getting with the N95, a beautiful display with a great touchscreen, and the controls turn out perfect, but the overall concept is kind of cool. Let me know in the comments, what do you think of a device like this? Do you think it's worth picking up, particularly when it comes to the N95? Let me know in the comments, and it would be great to see you in the next video.